V'ruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Pei Dalid Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom at the New Gemara. Our Mishnah is discussing the prohibition of kilayim, planting 2 different seeds together. As the Torah says, Besotra lo sizra kilayim. And whereby our Mishnah says there's a case where a person can plant 5 seeds together in a garden that is 6 by 6 tfachim and not be over the prohibition of kilayim. After all, the Torah is makbid that the 2 seeds that are planted near each other are not getting yanika one from the next. Whereby if they have a distance of a sheer yanika of each zera, which is 1.5 tfachim each one, whereby if you have 2 seeds, it's a total of 3 tfachim, one apart from the other, then it's not a problem of kilayim. That's providing that it's not recognizable to the outside that there's a separation between these 2 things that are being planted. If you have, let's say, a fence in between 2 things that were planted, then that itself is sufficient for not to be an isur of kilayim, even if it's less than 3 tfachim apart, and there is yanika underneath the ground that one gets from the other. Whereby the Mishnah tells us this case where you have 6 by 6 tfachim garden, you can plant 5 different types of seeds in that garden without being over the isur of kilayim. One row on each of the directions of this square garden, and a 5th seed in the middle. The 5th seed in the middle is 3 tfachim exactly between its seed and the other seeds from all directions. And the rows that are planted are each one in a different direction from the other, and therefore they're recognizable that they're going to be separate from the other types of seeds. And therefore there's no problem with the araisa. But the Mishnah wants to know, what is the remez from Tanakh that we find such a thing that you can plant 5 different types of seeds, and indeed it won't be an isser of kilayim. It brings a pasuk, the Mishnah, ki ka'aretz toitzi tzimcha, like the land that will sprout forth semach, a plant, ukegano zerueho tatzmiach, and in the garden, like a garden that will sprout forth, it doesn't say singular seed, but rather seeds. So it changes from the ratio of the kra of singular to the seif of the kra plural, whereby the Mishnah understands from here that we can make a drasha counting the various words that are talking about sprouting and growing forth seeds. Ask the Gemara to explain. My mashma, where do we see exactly the remez from this verse? Rabbi Yehuda, ki ka'aretz toitzi tzimcha. Toitzi is chad. The first is the fact that we say toitzi, that we can count as 1 type of seed. Tzimcha, also chad, a 2nd type of seed. Hare trey, we have 2 different seeds. Zero'eh is not single, but it's plural, we said, and therefore trey. Ha'arba, 2 and 2 is 4. 4 different types of seeds. Tatzmiach is 1. Hachamisha, therefore we have 5 different types of seeds. That is merumas in this pasuk, based on every word that is referring to the sprouting forth of that which was planted. V'kimluhu l'rabbonon, top of Hey Amud Aleph. The Gemara now says, V'kimlu l'rabbonon, dechamsha b'shisa lo yinake mehadodi. And the Chachamim were able to determine that indeed 5 different seeds in a garden of 6 by 6 tfachim do not cause an admixture that becomes an isur of kilayim. Ask the Gemara, uminolon dehadekim l'rabbanan milsahi. From where do we know indeed that which the Chachamim determined to be 5 different types of seeds in a garden of 6 by 6 tfachim is something that is not considered to be an admixture? Where do they know that from? Where do they know that the sheer yanika is indeed enough to then make it so that it's not considered to be an isur of kilayim? Answers the Gemara to explain. What's meant by the following pasuk? The pasuk in general is understood to mean you shall not encroach on your neighbor's property, whereby it's a form of gezela. If a person takes, for example, the border and he changes it by moving it, extending it into his neighbor's property so that he can have a larger piece of property, he's stealing and he's over the prohibition not only of gezel but of losasi gavul re'echo. But the pasuk, goes on to say losasi gavul re'echo asher gavlu rishonim. So the Gemara wants to make a drush to explain why does it say asher gavlu rishonim, that the rishonim, the earlier ones, made a mark. Gavul she gavlu rishonim losasig. Does that mean to say only that which the earlier ones made a mark, then you cannot encroach on your neighbor's property, but every other type of encroachment would be permissible? Certainly not. So therefore, the Gemara explains as follows. Gvul shegavlu rishonim losasig is a reference to that which your neighbor planted, do not encroach on his planting, whereby don't plant something close enough will get share yanika from the neighbor's plant and will then weaken your neighbor's field. Ask the Gemara, my gavlu rishonim, who are these rishonim that were gavlu, that were able to determine that the shir yanika has to be a certain distance from your neighbor's field, so that your planting does not intrude and weaken your friend's field? Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rabbi Yonason, Dirshu, it says in the pasuk, Eile b'nei Sa'ir hachari yoshvei haaretz. These are the children of Sa'ir, the Chari, that's the name of the people, who were yoshvei haaretz. Ask the Gemara, Otu kuli alma yoshvei rakia ninhu. Does that mean to say because they are yoshvei haaretz, does that imply that everybody else is yoshvei birakia, everybody else lives in the heavens? In other words, when the verses state Eretz Knani Yoshvei Haaretz, or Yoshvei Haaretz Knani, for example, then it specifies the place. Here it doesn't say any specific place, and therefore when it says Yoshvei Haaretz, the Gemara seems to be bothered with saying that these people are Yoshvei Haaretz, but everybody else is not Yoshvei Haaretz, to make the following drasha. Elishahayu bikiyin b'yeshuva shel aretz. It's coming to say that these people of Chari, these Bnei Sa'ir, were experts in the Yeshuvei Haaretz, meaning in that which dwells inside the ground, in the Aretz itself, meaning they were experts in knowing what should be planted in this soil. Shahayu armim mole kane ze lazayis. They would say a full measurement of this measuring stick is for a zayis, for a olive tree. This is the most best type of soil to plant olives. Moloi kaneh ze ligafonim, or a full measure of this type of soil is best for making gefonim, to plant grapevines. Moloi kaneh ze lita'enim. Then they would say this other soil, the measure of this soil, this is best to be planting ta'enim, figs. So they were experts in knowing what exactly should be planted in each place where the soil is most beneficial for that type of fruit. Vechari, the Gemara darshans their name, they're called Vechari. Shemerichim esarts, they would smell the soil. Vechivi, and they're called Chivi. Why? They would taste the soil like a chivya, like a snake. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Omar Chari, he darshans the name Chari differently. Shenasu b'nei charin minichsehen. They became expelled from their land, whereby they no longer had to then work the land. They were considered to be b'nei charin from their nichseim, from their property. Says the Gemara, going back to our Mishnah, that which our Mishnah said that you can plant 5 different seeds in a garden 6 by 6 tefachim. The Gemara now comments, Amar Rav Asi aruga toicha vav chutz migvuleha. That which we're talking about, a garden of vav al vav, is that the garden itself is vav al vav tefachim. not including the gevul, not including the outer area which is used as a border to where a person will water the garden. Tani Nami Hoch, we also have a support from a Braisa to this effect. Aruga Toicha Shisha, the inside of the garden is itself Shisha Tfachim by Shisha Tfachim. Ask the Gemara, that gevul that we said is outside the Shisha Tfachim or Shisha Tfachim, Bekama, how wide is this gevul, is this border? Says the Gemara, Kidisnan, like it says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Roichav, its width is Kamulai Roichav Parsa, like the width of a person's foot. And therefore, the width of a person's foot is the shear of a tefach. Now that's an interesting way that Rabbi Yehuda comes to explain the width of the gevul. Why not say that it's the width of a tefach? Why mention that it's the width of a foot? Omer Rav Zeir v'Item Rav Chanina bar Papa, my time with Rabbi Yehuda, what's the reason why he explains the shear to be the size of a width of a foot? Dirshu, as it says in the Pasuk, V'hishkisa b'raglecha kigan hayerek. Unlike the land of Eretz Yisrael, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring rain upon the land, and the land will be watered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu through rainfall, which is a tremendous bracha. In Mitzrayim, and they'd have to then go ahead and irrigate, they'd have to feed, then water their fields with that by themselves, and it expresses the pasuk in an interesting way. It doesn't just v'hishkisa kigan hayerek, that over there in Mitzrayim they're going to then water like the vegetable type of garden, but rather it adds the word biraglecha. It says with your foot, by foot it says. What does it mean? On your foot you're going to then water the vegetable garden? Ma regel tefach af gevul nami tefach. To explain that just as the regel, the width of a foot is the size of a tefach, so too then the gevul will also be the width of a tefach. Whereby that's the reason why Rabbi Yehuda explained the shear in such a way. So we have it that a 6x6 garden can be then seeded by 5 different types of seeds. And there's a gevul, there's going to be a border surrounding that garden the size of a width of a tefach.